Welcome. How's everybody doing? Good? That's good. Look friendly, eh? They must have screened them at the door. They got the ones. For those of you who don't know who I am or anything, just give you a little overview of where I came from. I was raised on a small farm. I didn't grow up in a church. I ended up suicidal in my early 20s. It's fairly easy to talk about now because it's a long time ago, but it wasn't good back then. And my best friend took his life at that point. A little hard time, but God uses hard times, and most people seems like they have to hit a wall before they look up, and I was no different. I met a preacher at a small wedding, and well, he helped me a lot. And he told me about a God that I didn't know anything about. And I picked up a guitar when I was 27, and I started getting songs. And I'd worked on farms for 20 years as a relief milker, and I traveled around. I was a farm hand and did all that stuff. The last 8 years, all we've been doing is singing, just in Canada mostly. We had done 6 CDs, and I thought, I guess that's it. God gave me enough songs, and I'd never written any songs for about 3 years. And all of a sudden, this past spring, I got enough songs for 2 CDs. It all came just in a big. Every time I look at a hydro pole, I get a song. I thought, this is getting ridiculous, But many of the songs are to deal with. I've had a scripture in my head the last few days, so I'm assuming it's because God put it there. It's in Jeremiah. And we've seen, I believe you see this, and it's a very puzzling thing in our nation. It says the prophets prophesy lies, and the priests, or pastors if you want to say, they rule by their own authority, and the people love it this way. That's a scary scripture, but I believe there's a fair bit of truth in that. You see, in the churches, we have a soft church age. And I'm not an expert. I haven't figured it all out. And maybe I never will. But all I'm going to do tonight is try to sing a few little songs that may help someone somewhere. I've heard a few stories of people that lives were almost shipwrecked and some terrible things. 15, 20 years, marriages torn apart, all because of a polite word would be silliness in the church. But it's come from this new gospel that started about 30 years ago. But I want to start with a song. I tell everybody I'm a deep thinker, and they lock most of us up. I'm still running around. But I like to have fun like everybody, but there's a time and a place. And the Bible talks about times when people's joy should turn to mourning. And nobody wants to mourn, not in North America. Let's just all be happy. Well, who defined what happy is? God's looking for people, I believe, today to stand up where they are and live for God. And this song here is, it's called Picture of Today. And it's Noah. Everybody knows about Noah. I didn't even grow up in church, and I knew about him. He's the guy with the boat and all the cute animals. Where they go. I don't know why he didn't take care of the mosquito when he had a chance, but he wasn't really thinking there. But if you read the Bible, it's more than just a picture on a wall with some, boat and the cute animals. The Bible says that Noah was a preacher of righteousness. So Put that together. It took him 100 years to build the boat, more than 100. Noah must have preached beside the boat. And it probably just wasn't Sunday morning. It may well have been every day for 100 years. And the story goes that the flood took them all away. Hardly anybody listened to that man. It's quite a story. If it's not just a cute story. Think about it. The man was not there for 2 weeks, like they had an excuse. Well, he's just some crazy old man. God told him to build a boat. What does he know? 100 years. And they still didn't recognize God's man when he stood up. And then you look on and you read later in the New Testament, it says, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the end. And I'm not saying this is, that I know the end, but there's some very definite signs of some things happening. If you were to bring some people back out of the grave today from 50 years ago who weren't even Christians, they would look around and they say, why do you live like this? What's wrong with you people? So Noah, I would imagine, and once again I don't know, I wasn't there, but I have a feeling that Noah cried at night a lot because he talked to the people and they wouldn't listen. The song's called Picture of Today. In the end it will be like the days of Noah. Men will shake their fists and laugh at God. The curse is named from early in the morning and run from every good thing they've been taught. You wonder how they get along without a savior when all around their world is crashing to the ground. Still there's no room for some baby in a manger. Eat, drink, and party, you just get one time around. 'Cause they don't care where they're going, even if there's hell to pay. Can see they're reaping what they're sowing. Add it up, that's a picture of today. If you gave these folks a brush and a canvas, most of the paint would be just outside the lines. They call it freedom of expression when it's madness. They say to make this world go round, it takes all kinds. But when you look them in the eye, you see a sadness. In that state, they should be ready for some love. They think only money, fame, and dreams will bring you gladness. And they don't want the stuff if it's from up above. 'Cause they don't care where they're going, even if there's hell to pay. Can't see the reaping what they're sowing. Add it up, that's a picture of today. 'Cause heaven's just for those with simple minds, and hell don't fit today, get with the times. You see, they don't care where they're going, even if there's hell to pay. Can't see the reaping what they're sowing. Add it up, that's a picture of today. I have a good friend you might have noticed on the stage. It's my wife Jennifer, and I have. And I have a daughter right over here, Amanda, and I have two daughters, and Sarah, our oldest daughter, our firstborn, the firstborn. She's up in Grand Prairie, Alberta, going to Bible school, and so they've all three of them. Well, I live with three nice ladies. Sort of. Even when we traveled in the first motorhome, we got a hamster, and we thought it was a boy, and it turned out to be a girl too. So it follows me around, but they put up with a lot because I do a lot of thinking, and I do it out loud, and I'm always trying to figure things out. God, what's it all about? And this song here is called "I'm Leaving Town," and I remember as a brand new Christian, I came home and I was 22 years old, and the first few little experiences I noticed or signs, I guess. I was just learning. I was working on a farm. Man was quite sick, and I worked there for 2 years, helping out, and it was May. And I had the old farmer's old pickup truck, and I was picking up brush along the fence, stuff you do, clean things up. And I had the door open and the radio blasting like I'd always done, just. I'd been in church just a few weeks. I'd heard some songs that I'd never heard before. And I remember I went to this thing on a Sunday night, I think the first Sunday night after I became a Christian, and they called it Singspiration, and it was this little church, and people would get up and sing a song, and a family would get up, and then they'd sing a couple songs, and the whole, almost everybody would sing a song. Some of them, they didn't hold that great of a tune, but it didn't seem to matter. I recognized something, and I heard something that I'd never noticed before or been around. And I'm not saying all of these people were following God, but there was quite a few of them. And I noticed the radio songs didn't sound as good as the ones in church. They're supposed to be the professional. I thought, wait a minute. But see, I was learning that, the whole value system is different. You march to the beat of a different drum. And so I turned the radio off. Of course, I turned it back on later, but then I turned it off again. I was having this, anyway. My dilemma, I guess if you call it, is I have a hard time understanding in our church age how so many people still have a twinkle in their eye for that stuff, but yet Jesus is on their lips. To me, it's almost grade 1 Christianity. I thought that's from the very beginning, isn't it? If people had a true conversion, the world looks funny. Like the old chorus said, turn your eyes upon Jesus, and the things of this earth grow strangely dim. I'm leaving town. There are days when I fall down on my knees, and I must admit I'm just plain tired, preaching sea to sea, convincing men they need the Lord is no small task today. It seems most would rather play than pray. What compels a man to live his life alone? From post to post they wander, still their hearts must groan. They're looking for the answer, but their search is all in vain. Until they turn to God, their sin remains. Don't they want to go to heaven? Don't they know it's peaceful there? But they've chose this world. To me they don't compare. One is full of heartaches and slogans that let you down. They can have it all, but as for me, I'm leaving town. We get all enthused with our cars and sporting games, but when we turn the key and start the game, it never brings a change. We're hopelessly devoted to things that can't fulfill. We live from day to day for that next thrill. Don't we want to go to heaven? Don't we know it's peaceful there? But we chose this world. To me they don't compare. One is full of heartaches and slogans that let you down. They can have it all, but as for me, I'm leaving town. I just want to go to heaven. I hear it's peaceful there. I've tried this world. They really don't compare. One is full of heartaches and slogans that let you down. They can have it all, but as for me, I'm leaving town. They can have it all, but as for me, I'm leaving town. I have little classrooms that I get to walk through every year, and God knows how to teach you stuff, boy. I had one last October, and I was asked to sing at Saskatoon at a trades fair convention for the western provinces, and they had a big award thing, or a banquet Friday night, a big award thing Saturday night, and Sunday morning they had a small breakfast, and I guess they wanted somebody to sing Amazing Grace or some little token song to make them feel good. And I realized most of the people wouldn't be there, but I said I'd still go. You never know who's listening. But she called a week before, and she sounded a little bit panicking on the phone, and I realized probably there was no one else to ask, and I was the last straw. She had a cancellation on Friday night, and she said, "You wouldn't want to sing on Friday night." I said, "Well, if you want me to." So I went, and there was 5 acts that night. Each had a half an hour, and it was a big place, and everybody's at their tables, and everybody's drinking and yakking, and it's not the easiest place to sing gospel music and tell a story about a song, because you're more background music than anything. And the first guy got up, and he was a singer, and nobody listened to him. And I realized, boy, it's going to be hard. And the next guy, he was a comedian, and I wish I could tell you he was funny. The guy was, I knew what a dirty joke was, but I guess I've been removed from that a little bit. There's no line they don't cross. They'll say anything. And I was backstage. I thought some people would be embarrassed because he just kept going deeper and deeper, and but it didn't work that way. The worse he got, the louder they roared. And I was backstage, and I had to sing after him. And I thought, I wonder wanted to go out the back door, but I couldn't find it because it was too... But I went out, and I said, God, I told him, I said, this is why I'm here. I said, God gave me a new lease on life, and I have a few little songs, and they're nothing special, and I get scared when I do this, but if you'd like to listen, I'll sing. To my surprise, they didn't make a sound for half an hour. I wasn't expecting that, but they listened. But what I learned that weekend was this, and that's where this next song comes into play. People came up to me afterwards, but it was quite a few of them, but it was always alone in the elevator, and they'd say, good job. And in the bathroom, one-on-one. One Christian to another. I really liked what you did. But I watched those people through that weekend. There was quite a few. And they wouldn't come near me in the crowd. I don't know, when I went to school, 2 and 2 was 4. You want to be a Christian, stand up. Be counted. See, that's about where we are today. I've heard somebody, I'm just stealing an expression that I heard somebody else use, but it used to be that the church was up here and the world was down here. The world sunk way down. And now we think if we're 3 notches above where the world is, we're okay. And they'll want to come to where we are. They can almost step over. But it never worked like that before. All those people for years that lived by standards and values called themselves Christians. Apparently they didn't have to do that. So either they were wrong or this new church age is wrong. They look at and they say, there's a Christian. But then they say, I don't see, he's marginally different than I am, just a little. Why exactly do I need this in my life? This is the North American Christian. When you started out, you didn't see a lot of horsing around. When you spotted a Christian, you knew what was going down. They weren't in love with the world, yet they were awful kind. Their life spoke so loud, they didn't need no sign. They didn't fit in like today, it wasn't a game. So we modified it a bit so it all looked the same. Follow me, I'm a North American Christian. Well, I'm not that different from anybody else, except I got a Bible on my shelf. I mostly read those how-to books on the important stuff. My house and my books follow me. I'm a North American Christian. We don't need to be living like that no more. Folks will start to wonder what we're living for. They might get to believing that the Bible's true. Yeah, they'll figure me out, and then what will I do? I gotta keep this thing from getting out of hand. I'm in the middle of the road, and it's right where I'm gonna stand. Follow me, I'm a North American Christian. Well, I'm not that different from anybody else, except I got a Bible on my shelf. I mostly read those magazines about my car and my truck, my great big dream. Follow me, I'm a North American Christian. We had to take old God and bring him up was asking a little bit much now, don't you think? That was fine for the old fogies back then, but I think we're a little smarter than them. Why don't we all join hands and try to get along? We don't need to draw no line between right and wrong. Follow me, I'm a North American Christian. Well, I'm not that different from anybody else, except I got a Bible on my shelf. I like every new thing that comes along. All you need is love. It's my theme song. Follow me, I'm a North American Christian. Oh, I also read that Christian fluff. I got the best of both worlds, I'm living it up. Follow me, I'm a North American Christian. It doesn't take too long if, and I'm sure there's people here and people are listening to this. If you've set your mind to say, God, I want to follow you, it'll be a very short time before you will run into a bit of trouble, and you'll run smack dab into the social religiosity of the day too. We had an experience last year. God got us a little house. We live in Tuxford, Saskatchewan. Does anybody know where that is? Does anybody want to know where that is? But we, make a long story short, it was we had a little 110-year-old farmhouse, and God had worked for years to try to pay the whole thing off, and then God sent us into ministry, and the house was gone. And 7 years later, God gave us our house back, and we weren't even looking for it. It just happened in 2 days. And it was a $37,000 warmest little house we ever had. It's all fixed up, and it was a log cabin, and they moved it there and insulated the living daylights out of it. It's a cute little thing. And everything's cute. I have a cute wife, cute house, cute. I have cute cars. Has anybody ever? I used to have Chevettes. Anybody ever own a Chevette? You can admit to it. I had 5 of them. They wouldn't start in the winter. So God gave me something better. Now I have Geos, which is it's a 3-cylinder. It's a sewing machine on wheels. It's a motorcycle with tin around it. But we had lived in a mobile home for 3 years on a Bible school campus, and this is what happened. We ended up at a prayer meeting, and on Saturday mornings when I was home, and it was for a man that had worked 40 years working with Muslims, and he was a prisoner in his own home. His wife had Alzheimer's and cancer, and this man he's a gem. And they started a meeting in his home because he couldn't go out anywhere. So I went there, and they'd gather around, and I listened to him tell his stories and watched the tears run down his face. I feel so far removed from I didn't understand anything about missions or other countries. I mean, I milked a cow. I didn't know. It just seemed so distant and far away. But I started to understand a little bit of the need. And so what we did was we felt God was telling us, well, God basically almost gave us our trailer. So we gave it back. We thought we'll give it for missions. Except it sounded like an easy thing, just, put a sign up and away you go. But we got into a pickle. And I would have never expected it, but I think it was a lesson, and God was trying to show us something. And we had a couple of people that we thought were going to take the trailer, and then all of a sudden they disappeared, and they found something else. And it came down to a young couple that we'd received. I got a phone call from them. And I sort of just kind of discarded them because they were just young, and they said they didn't have any money, and there wasn't, but they just sounded like they were kind of hoping maybe. Well, guess what? They called. they were it. They had the money. I thought, oh, well, we got somebody. That's good. So we can do this. And except that night I remembered when he talked to me on the phone, he said they were getting married. First I thought, that's great. But all of a sudden this equation didn't work. They were living together, and I was going to take their money and give it to missions. Somehow that didn't go together. I wasn't sure. Well, I can't do anything. What can I do? If I mention one word, it'll sound like I'm saying you're a no good for nothing, low down, rotten sinner. No matter how nice I said it. So we prayed. And this is what God told us to do. We called them up. They were getting married anyway. We said, we'll pay for your rent for a few months till you're married. And we even offered to chip in $1,000 to help them with their wedding. And they said yes. And we went, oh, thank God. That wasn't so bad. I was getting all worried for nothing. Except they called back the next day and they said, who do you think you are? Didn't sound good. Because they said, it's not 1952. It's 2006. You're crazy. You can't tell us to do what you're doing. And I said, well, I'm trying to, I said, my conscience won't allow me. And they said, you're crazy. I said, well, I'll have to throw my Bible out this afternoon. They said, no, we need Bibles. I said, well, my Bible was the same in 1952 as it is in 2006. What am I supposed to do? I was shaken that night. And I started to realize, if you want to live for God, you're going to run into it. Somebody has to stand for something, don't they? He said, well, you're not allowed to draw lines. When I was talking to him on the phone, I said, well, he said, you're discriminating. And I said, well, I said, well, what about gay marriage? He says, well, no, that's acceptable. I said, well, what about abortion? He goes, no, I don't really like abortion. I said, oh, you just drew a line. You're discriminating. I said, well, soon we'll be able to kill our mother. If she's getting old, that's the logic of this. It's that bad. We'll do anything. And I used to hear and read in the Bible about the lonely road. Jesus walked a lonely road up to a cross. 11 of the 12 disciples were killed for bringing the good news. Why did they kill them? Because with their life they drew a line. God drew a few lines. He had to. We live in a society that says we don't need any lines. We have to have lines. This song is called The Lonely Road. They say the years have come and gone, things are not the same, and all the ways from yesterday have been removed or changed. They say we've come so far, we can't go back. You'd think if we're that smart, we'd know more than that. Well, I'll take my chances. I believe the saints of old, they said a time would come like this, when many would grow cold. The Lord himself gave warnings, so I guess we've been told. So I must prepare myself to walk this lonely road. The world keeps growing darker now, the light's been left behind, and those who live their life for good are harder now to find. It seems that we've forgotten how to blush. And if you raise your voice against it, they say, what's the fuss? Well, I'll take my chances. I believe the saints of old, they said a time would come like this when many would grow cold. The Lord himself gave warnings, so I guess we've been told. So I must prepare myself to walk this lonely road. I'd like to think it's just a phase, there's saner days ahead. 'Cause at the rate we're going now, we might soon raise the dead. 'Cause they've been rolling round for quite some time. And if they came back now, they'd say we've lost our mind. Well, I'll take my chances. I believe the saints of old, they said a time would come like this when many would grow cold. The Lord himself gave warnings, so I guess we've been told. So I must prepare myself to walk this lonely road. So I must prepare myself for the lonely road. I'm sure there's other people on the lonely road. I'm not the only one. It's quite a wrestling match sometimes. But it's not a hard decision which way to go. But in the early years as a Christian especially, I thought, God, this thing better be real. I lost a lot of friends here. And I didn't even try. And back again to the disciples. Remember, they killed them. These people weren't doing any harm, any wrong. They were preaching the message that God from heaven told them to preach. They loved people. Jesus loved people, and they killed him. Because the Bible says men loved the darkness. The light came in to the world, but men loved the darkness. And I guess it's been that way from the beginning, and I guess you can't really change it. It'd be nice if you could just think everybody would just, come on, let's go. Follow me, let's go. But the wrestling match is I either have to go with this all the way, walk away from it all, or the worst of the three is go to church and put all that effort into trying to fool other people that I'm still on the road. The song here is called The Show Goes On, and in many churches across our nation, you don't have to go to the theater. Show goes on. Sunday church, the show is on, and heaven's all throughout their songs. You'd think they meant them all along, but they They've been doing this for years. Sometimes they even shed some tears. They're unfaithful without fear. This play is not like it appears. They're so impressed by the world. It won their heart with just one song. Looks like the villain got the girl. Please tell me why the show goes on. You see, they found another love. This one's not from up above. I hope their new flame is enough. 'Cause loving both is kind of tough. They say that God's still number one. They just want to have some fun. If there was danger, they would run. But up till now, they're finding none. They're so impressed by the world. They're torn between which part to play. They'd like to give them both the world, but you can't live your life both ways. I want a good old-fashioned play, not like the stuff we see today. People living church that way, then they have the nerve to pray. All these actors should have known. I'm sure at one time they were shown just by how much they condone. They're saying heaven's not their home. They're so impressed by the world. They won their heart with just one song. Looks like the villain got the girl. You wonder why the show goes on until the good guy wins the girl. I guess the show must go on. I'm gonna do a couple of sort of love songs. I think God gave me these because maybe I'm too serious at times. I tell everybody it's like horseradish. It's good, but you don't need a whole plate because it's good. And I get accused of that a little. But I have a song that I wrote about my wife, and we had our marriage vows redone last year on our 20th anniversary, and in the backyard of a missionary friend of ours, about 45 people. My wife had her wedding dress on. So she's my first and second wife, I guess. I like them both. But, sorry. But we've come from a little bit of awkward backgrounds, and I was, like I said, I was suicidal, and there was a lot of bitterness and people not speaking to one another, and that might sound like not, but my dad had an awful life because of that. I was spared most of it. I didn't have to deal with all that, but he was beat up and locked in rooms and that was all through that back there. And but for the grace of God, that's the same path I would probably be in right now. And my wife, she's the city girl, and I'm the country boy. And she had to come to the country for me to find her, though, because I wouldn't go to the city. Because I was scared to drive. And I was a farm hick, I'm telling you. hillbilly, but, well, borderline. My wife's story, and it's somewhat awkward to, and some people say you're not supposed to talk about things and just keep it to yourself. But the thing is, when God gives you, He's given us a voice. I fought it for quite a while, but I realize now that God's given me a place to speak, and I don't take it lightly. Before we left on this trip, we had 40 concerts in 2 months. I felt God telling me to, I fasted for a week, and I was saying, God, please help me to say what I'm supposed to say. But it's to bring hope to other people that are in, and if you don't remove the scars, sometimes you can't get in there where people live. And my wife's mom, and God is still God. God loves her just as much as He loves us. And it would only take one step on her part and God would come running. But she went through a couple of husbands and became a gay rights activist and married another woman. And people can say what they want, but that's very difficult on everybody. Only God can get you through that. And I believe He has. And so this song I wrote, I told this story before, but I wrote it at a little campground called the Rubber Ducky Resort and Campground. It was kind of a small little place, but sitting beside a duck pond, and I like her. The song's called I Thee Wed. This road together, 20 years have passed, and as a wife she's truly been much more than I could ask. Her beauty leaves me breathless, her smile still melts my heart. I pledge again today, I'll stay with her till death do part. I thee wed, before God I stand, and I promise I will always hold her hand. Hold my hand. I thee wed, my lovely bride, with God we'll face the future side by side. The day that I first met her, my poor heart skipped a beat. I knew she was the one who would make my life complete. A present sent from heaven, God wrapped her oh so nice. I won the world that day, 'cause that girl became my wife. I thee wed, before God I stand, and I promise I will always hold her hand. Hold my hand. I thee wed, my lovely bride, with God we'll face the future side by side. gave me precious children, and I'm proud to be their dad. Just another gift from God that I never would have had.
We'd never had.
Surely He has blessed me more than any man deserves. That's why I'm standing here today, repeating these three words. I beware before God I stand, and I promise I will always hold her hand. I beware, my lovely bride, but God will face the future side by side. Oh, with God we'll face the future side by side. I have well, that song was a love song about my wife, but I have three other kind of love songs about my wife too. But the very first song that I ever wrote, well, I'd written just a few songs, and my wife came home and she said, "How come you don't write a song about me?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure how. God gives me these other songs. They just come from somewhere. I don't know how to sit down and just rhyme." But I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. She was going out the door to town to get some groceries. She was only gone for a couple hours. And I'd just been reading a book in the Bible called the Song of Solomon. And has anybody read that? I was kind of embarrassed when I read it the first time. But I wasn't sure, but I just looked through it. It's just a short little book there. And I thought, well, there's some things in there. Maybe I can. So I ended up with a little tune when she came home, and she said that wasn't exactly what she was thinking of. But see, they would be describing, their wife or their husband in that book, and they use different terms than we do today. Like we have all our little expressions. Like when the first date, I called my wife. I said she was cute as a button, and I don't know, maybe that was corny, but that was my line. And but they didn't say button or anything like that back then. They had all kinds of other stuff. And so I put this in a little song, and I won't give God any credit for this song because He wouldn't. I wrote this one. And, it's not very good. But but the thing is, just because it didn't work for me, this song, doesn't mean it won't work for some of you guys. You could try it, And maybe you've just never heard these terms, and you go home and this could just change everything for you. It may be good, it may be bad. This song is called "That's Your Wife." Well, there's a book found in the Bible. It's just after the book of Psalms. There's some biblical words in there to describe your wife if you're in love or you did something wrong. Now, these words, they used to be flattering. They don't get much use today. Somewhere in the translation, they lost a little something along the way. They used to say she's got hair like a flock of goats, teeth like a flock of sheep, a nose like the Tower of Lebanon, and you really like her feet. She's got a navel like a goblet and a waist like a mound of wheat. What they were really trying to say is, she's so sweet. Yeah, that's your wife, that's your wife, and she really changed your life. She's the apple of your eye, and you'll love her till you die. Yeah, that's your wife, that's your wife. Well, she's the cutest little thing. Now that's the kind of songs they used to sing. Now they talked a little different back then. Not sure if they'd qualify as compliments today, but it all depends on your wife. This might take her breath away. Now if your wife is close, I mean, what harm can it do? Just check your insurance policy once or twice, grab her hand and sing her a verse or two. Tell her she's got a neck like an ivory tower, eyes just like doves, lips like a scarlet ribbon. She's the one that your heart loves. Oh, she's got temples just like pomegranates, and you really think you're blessed. And all you're trying to say is she's the best. Yeah, that's your wife, that's your wife, and she really changed your life. She's the apple of your eye, and you'll love her till you die. Yeah, that's your wife, that's your wife. Well, she's the cutest little thing. Now that's the kind of songs they used to sing. Now at this point your wife is angry, or the doves in her eyes are gone, just remind her that it's biblical and it's one of God's guys that wrote the song. You figured it might spice things up or make your marriage strong. Now if the door's locked and you're outside, well, you know you figured wrong. Now apologizing is biblical too, and you and Rover can't fit in the same house. After a few nights on the front porch, you'll be starting to miss your spouse. Just tell her that you're sorry and you won't be quoting the Bible to her no more. And promise her stuff, like you'll do the dishes. And you won't snore like you did before. 'Cause she's your wife, she's your wife, and she really changed your life. She's the apple of your eye, and you'll love her till you die. Yeah, that's your wife, that's your wife. Well, she's the cutest little thing. And this may not be the song you need to sing. Yeah, you just might need a different song to sing.
Are you singing that song again?
Written before the brain surgery, so it was. Just before we left on this trip, I got a song, and I thought songs were all done. God gave me all the songs, and then it stops, but I got this other song, and I was thinking, God, no more songs. They're too expensive. I don't need any more songs. But we have a little church just down the road where we moved. I went out looking, exploring, just driving down the road, and I found, and I don't want to read into numbers too much, but 7 is a pretty important number in the Bible. I know they use that stuff like that for gambling and stuff today, but God, they didn't invent that. God started it. God was his number a long time before they ever got a hold of it. Well, this church is exactly 7 kilometers from our house. Not 6.9, not 7.1. When you drive in the driveway and you park. And it's out in the middle of the prairies all by itself, and it holds maybe 35 people. And it's a historic site, just with the door unlocked all year round. And I thought, wow, I found a little treasure here, didn't I? God did this for me. It wasn't just for me, I'm sure there's lots of other people. I read some notes in there. People would leave notes. People come, there's guest books, they come from all over the place. But to me, it's almost like a museum. And that's why I wrote the song in there. And when you say that statement really quickly, it sounds good. A museum. Everybody likes museums. That's fun places to go, the museum. But if you analyze that sentence, that's not a good thing. A museum is a place where people go to look at things that used to be and aren't anymore. We're almost at the point where we could make a museum in Canada for what the church used to be. And people said, well, you're really stepping out on a limb saying things like that. That's not, there's lots of good things in church. Well, I learned many things that I didn't realize I would learn living on a Bible school campus, the largest one in Canada. I had no clue what was going on, but they're pumping preachers out of there all across the land. It was the hardest place I ever sang, bar none. I sang at that place, I thought it'd be easy. This is a pretty easy place to sing. 1,500 people walked by me and not one person talked to me. I'd never experienced that in any place in all of Canada. I was confused. What did I say? Did I say something? Well, I soon found out all the new things that they're bringing in to Bible schools. Not all Bible schools. Some have held on and said no. Some have turned around and made it back. But there's an outright hatred and mockery of the old gospel message. I didn't believe it was possible till I seen it. I heard it. I studied what they were teaching, some of the things, and I was discussing things with some students, some that thought it was great, and others that actually wanted to live for God and realized this stuff is wrong. And I guess the last straw was when I talked to a missionary friend of mine that I'd met, and he'd been 25 years on the mission field, and I got to know him really quickly. But he'd been over in China and Turkey and a couple of places, and he'd been gone a long time, hardly ever home. And he was sitting in his trailer on his Bible school campus, and he was with a dozen or so students in their early 20s. And he told me later, he said, when they left, he said, I felt like I was a different religion than they are. And he asked me, he said, explain this to me. And I said, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. All I know is that they've changed the gospel. Can't be for a good reason. The song is called Step Back. And you can't come out swinging and say, look, you guys, smarten up. But maybe with a gentle little look through a window, maybe like this song, I don't know. It's just a cry, I guess, to those like them and others that may be even listening to this. Would you please, one more time, consider what you left behind? Those people put a Bible in our hands because they live for God. I would hate to think what would happen if our generation was to change places with theirs. I don't think there'd be a Bible here today. Let's go in the museum, take a look at how it was back then. We could study the Christians, see how it must have been, and what caused their survival, made them pass along the faith that we have. Step back in the past and see what the church once had. Look, there's a Bible. They say they thought it was all true. Don't see many professors that cuts down on the points of view. You see, they clung to that old Bible. They weren't in need of some religious fad. Step back in the past and see what the church once had. They had pure, undivided faith. Their hearts were sure when they stood to state their case. They had both feet on the right side of the fence. And if you offered them this world, they wouldn't give 2 cents. Look over here, there's a book with all the hymns they'd sing. And over there, the church bell they used to ring. And oh, how they loved to gather with faith like a child would have. Step back in the past and see what the church once had. See the old revival shot, primitive as all can be. They preached fire and brimstone, somehow it made the people free. They didn't have much education, somehow that doesn't make me sad. Step back in the past and see what the church once had. They had pure, undivided faith. Their hearts were sure when they stood to state their case. They had both feet on the right side of the fence. And if you offered them this world, they wouldn't give 2 cents. Our tour is over now. Admission here is always free. We're open day and night. You don't even need a key. We trust your mind was challenged and that your heart was glad as you stepped into the past and saw what the church once had. This is a little easier song to sing before the last couple. After that, they're harder to sing. This song is, I wrote this sitting out beside, there's a little lake. We have a lake in Saskatchewan. We do. Actually, there's quite a bunch of them, but it was just a little bit down the road farther than that little church. And if you're a Christian, there's times that there's no way that you can get through. Well, sometimes it's days, sometimes you might go through a few months if you're lucky, but I don't think you get that far. You're going to have a day or a moment where you're overwhelmed. And you say, God, why have you done this for me? Some days, we think we sort of deserve what we've got. We're happy. Hey, I'm a Christian. I can do this. I walk. But you realize that it's only God that leads you down this path. He knows what we're made of. That's no excuse for sin. But God, today they've made it so sometimes the gospel, as one missionary told me, it's like Jesus. There's even books where Jesus goes behind you with a little mop pail and just mops up. You can just live any way you want. It's not a license for that. When you read the Psalms, there's a lot of emotions in there, isn't there? David is saying, save me from my enemies. In many cases, they're trying to kill him. He was saying, God, why doesn't other people understand? Why don't they? But many times when it gets back to the end, he's always saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, God. And this song is just called Look What You've Done. I was just a young man when I heard the call of God. I was sure you were mistaken. I'm not Peter and I'm not Paul. There must be someone else, Lord. I'm not sure that I could stand. Then I heard your voice say, trust me, take my hand. Look what you've done. It's more than I deserve. Look what you've done. You sure stand by your word. You give peace and strength and power, and help me rise above it all. Look what you've done. I just said yes when you called. I thought I'd suffered and done more than my fair share. But when you stand my list beside the cross, it really don't compare. I've been blessed beyond all measure with a joy this world can't give. I was dead in sin when you called me, come and live. Look what you've done. It's more than I deserve. Look what you've done. You sure stand by your word. You give peace and strength and power, and help me rise above it all. Look what you've done. I just said yes when you called. Look what you've done. It's more than I deserve. Look what you've done. You sure stand by your word. You give peace and strength and power, and help me rise above it all. Look what you've done. I just said yes when you called. What you've done, I just said yes when you called. A lot of people, you have your own version or story like that, if you're a Christian. When we travel, people, they look at us and Sometimes it's a little misunderstood because you travel around and say, oh, here's the guy with the fancy hat. Well, I paid $100 for it 10 years ago, so that's $10 a year. So it's not. I read scriptures when I first picked up the Bible. It said, if you lose your life for the gospel, you gain it. But if you try to hang on to your life, you lose it. Maybe it's misunderstood. I'm in good company, though, I guess. A whole bunch of other missionaries, people, left what they had. We don't have any savings account. We have no RSPs. We have nothing. It's amazing how God... He got us a little house, like I mentioned, but the prices... This is what happened last year. The houses from summer 2006 to 2007 in Moose Jaw, a $50,000 house went to $100,000. There was all kinds of that because people coming from Alberta and whatever was happening. And we got in just under that. We don't know nothing about nothing. And God got us a house for $37,000, which it'd be worth double at least that. About 2 months later. That's God. This is the hard part now. I like singing love songs. Guys sing another love song? No, I better. When we went in the studio this time, we had the most difficult song of all was this one. And I wasn't sure. I said, God, am I allowed to sing this? These words are... But I was sure God only gives me songs when He gives them to me, and they just come out. But I'd wrestled back and forth, and well, two things happened. One, it might sound a little like I'm reading into it, but when we went to do the final mix in the studio, you have to set all the levels, and about 2 days of work there, and the first song you'll spend 2 hours on that, and then the other songs go quicker after that. But when we went in the studio that morning, our producer Bobby Lalonde had this song on there, and after a while, because you have to listen to it for 2 hours, and after a while I asked him, I said, is there any reason you picked that song? He said, no, I just put it into the thing and it found its way to the top. And I went, First I thought, oh no, and then I thought, no, maybe that's God trying to say. But the other sign was what happened with our daughter. And I would have never right out of left field, but we had to see this. She went on a trip to Florida for 3 months to be a nanny for the cutest kid you ever seen in your life. 2 years old. With this young couple. He was doing his internship to go into some form of ministry. And the trip didn't last 3 months. It lasted 1 month. And what happened was our daughter called home, and first I thought she was homesick. You know, it sounded a little lonely or whatever on the phone. She talked to Jenny a couple times, but then I realized, no, it was something else. And start off with, when she got down there, they told her, you're not here to be a nanny. You're here because God's will is for you to be here. I was confused because that was the whole deal. But then there was different things going on, and a little bit of drinking and planting seeds. And, you know, my daughter would excuse herself from the living room if they were watching shows that she wasn't raised. And that's just a small thing, but they mounted up fairly quickly to the point where they were surrounding her almost, you know, and they were in one of these churches where they love you. And they felt the need to surround her and basically almost, I think, rescue her or convert her away from her parents and our old legalistic, narrow-minded gospel, I guess they call it. And our daughter was calling home, and she was in tears then, and I thought, oh boy, this is worse than we thought. I had no clue. And they were in one of the new Love churches. I think this one was, there's so many different varieties today, you can't hardly name them all, but this was, I think, was a purpose-driven or something. But they had DVDs laying around the house, How to Be a Millionaire God's Way. And anyway, we said, well, I guess you'll have to come home. Well, we talked to some of our older missionary friends, and they said, yeah, you got to pull her out. You can't leave her on the front lines there. That's too hard. But when we did, they said they wanted all the expense money. If you want her to come home, you got to pay us before she comes home. I said, well, okay, whatever you want is fine. And they said $700, and I said, well, it's probably half that, but I didn't say that's okay. My Bible says, bless those who curse you. I sent them $1,400. Plus a plane ticket. We had $2,300 in our account, which was not normal. It's a good thing. I had a couple of concerts where people took a lot of CDs, and I guess God knew what was ahead, and we didn't. And so it was $2,000 plus a $120 cab fee to the airport. They wouldn't even drive her to the airport in Orlando. This is the new love gospel. It's an ugly monster is what it is. As I heard one guy say recently, an older man, preacher, he said, in the dark ages, the devil's plan was to get rid of the Bible. If you've read any stories, they tried to get it off the face of the earth. They never succeeded. But the devil's plan today is to water it and dilute it so badly that it's only partial, little bits of truth mixed through it. There's enough in there. If people have not read their Bibles and they're not praying and they have a twinkle in their eye for what's in this world, this gospel will pull them in so quick they won't even know what's happened, what hit them. Jesus went in a temple one time with a whip, and he drove a bunch of people out of there. He upset their tables. And he said, this is my Father's house. People trying to find me here. You're in the way. There's a lot of stuff that's in the way today. Say, well, you're not allowed to speak against it because all the masses are going in one way. How dare anybody speak against it? They run to all their conferences. If Jeremiah came back today, how many people would go to his meetings? Not many, I don't think. This song is called Wait a Minute.
Told me call in, they'd give me a book, no need for stalling. Then they gave me that look, it sounded like they were honest men, right through to the bone. In just 40 days I'd have purpose in life, pray like Jabez, you'll be blessed more than twice. Repeat after me and you'll get more from God than your mind has ever dreamed. I looked at Schuler and his big glass tower, it's a big draw for those with fame and power. Although I tried, I couldn't figure out where the Lord came into play. And then there's Oprah, oh, and by the way, she's got the secret. New age is in today. I guess anything goes. There ought to be some questions that I can ask. Just wait a minute. That can't be right. It was a close one. I was starting to buy. It's a good thing I stopped and prayed, or I'd have been right in it. Now just wait a minute. If you want victory, your choices are few, you need Joyce she knows just what to do. And Benny has the cure, just make sure you send along the funds. There's the Wild at Heart, that's the outdoor bunch, and the Emergent Church, they're out to lunch. We got 32 flavors of Jesus, why don't you give them all a try? And then the prophets come on with their word for the day. It's always good news. You know the games that they play. I wonder why they don't make prophets like they had in the Bible times. They just smile a lot and tell you their lies. They're a sneaky bunch, hard to recognize. Study these tricksters long enough, they'll always cross the line. And you'll say, just wait a minute, it can't be right, it was a close one. I was starting to bite, it's a good thing I stopped and prayed, or I'd have been right in it. Just wait a minute. Something wrong, they've gone way past the limit. Just wait a minute.
I know some people might think I'm just some nut with a bunch of opinions. And I never said about any of these things for a long time. I would come home and sometimes you go 6 months if I was lucky, and I'd say, I see this, and they're telling me it's this. And I talk my wife's ear off, and then the devil says, well, you know everything. You're the only one that knows. It's not like that. See, now I've met, and I stack them up. I've met people quite a few older people, but they're not always old. I've met some good young people too, good young preachers, but if someone, well, I'll just tell the one story because it was last year. There was a guy in Salmon Arm, BC, and I heard him crying in a concert. You see people cry, but you don't usually hear him cry. And I seen he was troubled. He had his hands and his face in his hands. And I went over and talked to him. Later, I said, how old are you? I just opened the conversation because he's a sweet old guy, And he said, if I lived 3 weeks, I'd be 89. I thought, wow. But then I didn't feel so comfortable talking because he started to tell me that he'd preached for 45 years. And he was a man of few words, but he said he preached 45 years back when they'd work in the woods all week and preach 3 times on Sunday. And then I didn't feel qualified to talk to him because I thought I played Little League Baseball compared to what he does, or he did. But he gripped my hand. I waited for him to say something. What's he going to say? And he'd hold my hand with both hands. And his eyes would fill up with water, and he looked at me and he said, the gospel's not the same anymore. He said they've changed it. He said there was a thing called repentance one time. People made things right with God. They were broken. Salvation didn't amount to I vote for Jesus. So the way I look at the equation is, if those guys were wrong, which I have a hard time believing, they didn't know God, I guess. If they knew God, and the new kids on the block know God, these guys should be in the stands cheering these guys on. But they're not. Their message is opposed, totally opposed. So what are you supposed to do? I can't discount these guys. They're not just old guys that didn't know, they're past their prime and they don't want to change. If they're wrong, I'm going down with them. This song is my song for the church. I guess it's sort of a cry in some ways. I'm no Paul. Paul warned people day and night with tears. I'm just a farm boy that God gave a couple songs to. But why did Paul warn day and night with tears? What were the tears for? What I've figured out is, in the Bible, he birthed those churches. And they were like his children. And so he must have went and gave warnings and said, be careful. He stopped by that church and didn't fly with planes. It took a while to get there, And he gave these and he says, be careful. People will preach another Jesus. They'll come in here, they'll preach Jesus, but it's not the Jesus of the Bible. Be careful. But the devil doesn't use people with pointy horns to lead them astray. He uses very nice people with big smiles on their faces. So Paul gave these warnings, and as he went along, he figured they would take the warning and they would understand. But he must have heard reports back later that many had fallen. All that work and all that love that he put into bringing them to the Lord. And some guy came in with a smooth tongue and they were gone. That's where the tears would come.
Think the church would know by now the gospel can't be changed around or be made over. But don't look now, they've gone and done it. They made it into something strange. They can't be sober. They say the world can't understand the message of the cross. It might offend, so they pretend salvation has no cost. They ought to be ashamed of what they've done. God help them all to see God's holy ways will never fit into our liberality. I'd like to think they'd know better. You're trying to tell me the sky's green, not blue. I guess all that I can say is shame on you. There was a time when preachers prayed, and those whose lives had gone astray, their knees were bending. You might say they saw the light, changed their ways and made things right. They weren't pretending. Amazing grace had more than once turned a sinner from his ways. Don't you think we could use that now again in these dark days? They ought to be ashamed of what they've done. God help them all to see God's holy ways will never fit into our liberality. I'd like to think they'd know better. They're trying to tell me the sky's green, not blue. That's all that I can say is shame on you. Church just loves to play, and all that I can say is shame on you.
the last song. This song is really simple. It's just called Let's Go Home. I mentioned, I believe, earlier about hearing people's lives being shipwrecked by sometimes just one book somebody handed them. But I've heard stories of one day they got up and shook themselves. Said, I gotta go back where I started. And I've had my own experiences. I had a man set me up with 8 books. I had to read them all in order. I was about a 3-year-old Christian at that point. I became so confused I didn't know what was going on. But he sounded so nice, this man. He'd preached a lot too. One day I got up after about 4 months. I might say I had a little bit of a fit, but I threw them all in the garbage. And I threw a whole bunch of things in the garbage. Some things maybe I shouldn't have thrown in. But I remember what it was like when I picked up the Bible the first time. There's no games or guesswork with the Bible. And that's all sounds pretty simple, but that's all I'm telling people. There's safety back home. Be very careful. As one missionary said, Jesus could come back in North America and many of the church services would go on and they wouldn't even realize he was here. They've built them around. They're loving people, which all sounds so nice. They help the poor, and that's good. Just remember, Madonna adopts children too, from other countries. It doesn't prove that much. It doesn't prove we're Christians just because we even go on short-term mission trips. It doesn't prove we're following God. Sometimes it's just we're moved by a little emotion. We need to ask God, test our motives, test our hearts, God. Show me. And God's very faithful to do that. He's very gentle. He'll lead us to truth. Let's go home.
There's a voice on every corner. They say they have the cure. They speak as if they know God. At times we're just not sure. They write books that talk of Jesus. They have their TV shows. Their message leaves us troubled. Is it true? We just don't know. Let's go home. Back to the simple life of prayer, where the Bible was our roadmap. We knew that God was there. Let's go home. They're telling me this journey is a painless, carefree ride. I could have swore the last curve had a great big danger sign. The driver's eyes are eerie. When he smiles, I feel a chill. The road looks unfamiliar. This just can't be God's will. I must go home. Back to the simple life of prayer, where the Bible was my roadmap. I knew that God was there. I must go home. Said these times would come when common sense would leave, and those who have not loved the truth would surely be deceived. My friend, hear this warning. The gospel has been changed. Your soul is now in danger. Please go back from where you came. You must go home. Back to the simple life of prayer, where the Bible was your roadmap. You knew that God was there. You must go home. Where the Bible was our roadmap. We knew that God was there. Let's go home.
God bless you guys. Thank you for a lot of encouragement from some faces even in this crowd, known to the ears that a word or a letter just at the right time. And I guess this DVD is sort of my little letter to anybody that might think they can't stand, that you're not alone. There's a bunch more that haven't bowed yet. You know, the God of Baal was basically the God of increase, rain, and all that stuff. I say, that's old stuff from way back. Guess what? It's still here. That's what this new gospel is. It's the God of Baal. Bow down and worship this stuff, and I'll give you this world. The old saints knew this wasn't their home. They could care less. They wouldn't give 2 cents. Thank you again. God bless you.
There's a voice on every corner. They say they have the cure. They speak as if they know God. At times we're just not sure. They write books that talk of Jesus. They have their TV shows. Their message leaves us troubled.